You're listening to the Weird Reader Podcast, an extension of Jason's Weird Reads, found on YouTube. Welcome. Hello and welcome to Weird Reads. I am your host, Jason White, and today I have a guest. This is my second time talking to him, but we talked to each other briefly earlier this summer, but we'll get to that. But I have Jonathan Janz with me. Jonathan is one of my favorite writers. I've read, and yet I've only read about half of his books. It really kind of sucks doing this show because I find myself reading for the show all the time, so I can't always just go off. And I wanted to read a couple more Jonathan Janz stories before getting onto this, just to, get a little farther. But that didn't happen because I overbooked myself. I have a lot of interviews coming up. But I want to thank you, Jonathan. And I don't think you need an introduction, but can you give yourself a short introduction?
Yes, I'm Jonathan Janz. My buddy here did a great job. I don't really have a lot. I have COVID, so if I'm a little bit off or fuzzy or whatever, that's why. But I'm definitely upright, which is good. And I'm just happy to be here. I had a blast last time we talked, and I'm sure this will be a great time too, my friend.
Awesome. And yes, you're sick. You have COVID, so I want to thank you profusely for coming on anyway. You could have canceled, and that would have been totally fine. But I appreciate you not canceling. It's like I said, though, it would have been absolutely fine. But I was wondering, you've had a pretty busy summer. Is it as exciting for you as it appears on your social media?
It is. It's been a really fun time. It's been a wild time. But you know how it is. Like, life is just so busy that you kind of, I don't know, you're just kind of in the whirlwind and you don't really stop to contemplate it much.
Yeah.
But I have really, it's been a very positive time. Last month or so has been pretty special.
Yeah, I've been enjoying watching all the pictures come through of like the this book here, End of the World as We Know It. I have like all the copies for this. I have the physical hardcover, I have the ebook, and I have the audio book.
That is amazing, man. That's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
I bought the audiobook recently. I listened to my story on there. I haven't listened to the rest. I plan to, but I haven't listened to the others. I'm sure they're awesome.
Yeah. I want to go back just a little bit to what I remember when we were talking on the Short Bites podcast, the Stephen King podcast I also do. I mentioned that I've been reading you since about 2017, but I didn't mention which book it was. I don't think I did anyway. But the first book of yours I read was a novella called Witching Hour Theater.
Oh, wow.
That little book, it was like instant love. Once I read that, I was like, oh my God, I got to read more of this author. You know what I mean? One thing I loved about it, though, and I've noticed since then, is that you tend to, you show your love of the horror genre, like profusely. You wear it on your sleeve.
Yes.
And I was wondering why is it important? Not everybody does that. So why is it important for you to do that?
Yeah, I'm super protective of horror, and I am very, very proud of it. I just think that it's such a special genre, and it's got so many special readers and writers that I want to celebrate it. And because I think part of it is probably the fact that there's some negativity outside of the genre toward the genre, like
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's fine. People's taste is their taste. It's okay. But but some reasons you hear for not liking horror, I think are, at least to me, more logical than others. Like, I'll talk to people who they'll say, I don't watch horror because it scares me and disturbs me, and I'm like, oh, totally cool. I get that. But then you'll have people who are just reductive and dismissive about it. Like, it's just all blood and guts, and it's just, you're depraved if you read that and all that stuff. And that's the kind of criticism that really makes me bristle. So maybe partially because of those kinds of criticisms, I'm very quick to celebrate it, and like you said, I do wear it on my sleeve.
Yeah, I could talk about that subject all day, because I've been writing for a while too, and I used to have friends read my stories, and so I was labeled, a freak
Right.
for the things I'd write about, and they would like talk and laugh about the things that happen in my stories. Did you find yourself ever coming to grips with something like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was a woman I worked with, one of the schools at which I worked. I'm not going to say which one it is or who the woman was, but she read a story of mine called "The Clearing of Travis Coble," which is a
Mhm.
short, and she never looked at me the same again. Like every time I'd walk in, she looked fearful, and I'm like, it's cool, man. I promise I'm the same guy that you thought I was before you read that story. But yeah, for some people, it's difficult to like to realize that this is just imagination. That doesn't mean the writer is actually like that in real life. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's interesting because I have like in my questions here something about separating the writer from the horrible things that we tend to write, but we'll get to that in a little bit,
sure.
because it kind of involves what you write about in, I believe it's Vale, which is a crazy good story. But like I said, we'll get to that. But first, as a Stephen King fan, I think you're a bigger Stephen King fan than me. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm curious, have you read Stephen King's latest yet? Never Flinch.
That's one of the few I haven't. So it's so much easier for me to count up the ones I haven't read. I haven't read Never Flinch, Hearts in Atlantis.
Oh wow,
Yeah, I know, and everybody says it's awesome.
it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's one of my favorites. Absolutely, yeah.
I've heard I need to read it. I haven't read Lacey's story. Maybe one other, but like almost all of them I've read. But those are just a few I haven't.
That's crazy. I think Lacey's story there. That's one that you would want to read if you want to, like, I guess, get inside of Stephen King's head in regards to marriage and his marriage, because I think that one's very personal to him, and so it's fascinating read for that. But it's kind of it's one of his weirdest, I think, for him.
And he's really fond of it. I forget which interview it was, but he'll give his top 5 Stephen King stories, and at one point he named that as one of his 5 favorites. Maybe
Yeah,
because it was new, I don't know, but I think he's very fond of it.
yeah, he is. He says it's his most personal story, and so that's interesting too. But I like how it goes into the like colloquialisms of like a marriage, right?
Mm,
And just like you can go into friendships too, on how we have our own secret language with people that we know really well,
yeah,
and so that's why it gets a little confusing because there's so much of that in there.
all right, yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sure I've got it over there on my nightstand. I'm reading Billy Summers right now. I'm about 80% of the way through that one and loving it. I think Billy Summers
Oh,
is awesome, but Lacey's story's right over there waiting on me.
I need to read Billy Summers. I want to read Billy Summers so much.
Yeah, it's wicked.
I got
Wicked.
to fit it in somewhere.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good, man. So good.
And Stephen King was the first person you read, right? Like that you enjoyed. This is what got you hooked on reading, and it was Tommyknockers, right?
That's right. Yeah, he was the first person and the only person. I was monogamous with him until I went to college. I didn't read a
Oh wow.
single other author until I went to college, and I don't know how many I'd read, like 20, 25 of his, and then I went to Purdue, and then when I started to branch out, I did it with Dance Macabre. He had a list of books, so it's still Stephen King recommended. I didn't stray that far, but I started to read like Hell House by Richard Matheson, Ghost Story by Peter Straub, Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco, and then like a couple of Bradbury. Something Wicked This Way Comes by Bradbury. I think those were the first non-Stephen King books I read. That was my freshman year in college. But boy, those titles, those are He Didn't Lead Me Astray. Those are amazing
No,
books.
no, that's quite the list.
Yes, yes it
Yeah.
is. Mm.
Dance Macabre is a really awesome book, though.
Oh,
It,
so good.
I think it taught a lot of people, where to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So since I would say it's fair to say that Stephen King is your favorite author.
Yeah.
What book of yours would you say is your most influenced by Stephen King?
That's a great question. Well, I would say this isn't a book, but I'd say Lenora, the short story in the Stephen King The Stand anthology, is very much. I think there's a lot of his DNA there. I think there's a lot of his DNA in all my work. Honestly, probably the two other than Lenora that pop into my mind are. I think Children of the Dark has a lot of like the body in it,
Oh,
the
yeah,
Losers Club. I think there's a lot of that DNA
for
in
sure. Yeah.
the Dark series. And then I think, I mean, even though, yeah, I feel like Vale. I just feel like I don't know. It's weird because it's not a Stephen King kind of book, but at the same time, I can detect his influence in there. And that
Yeah.
one's on my mind a lot lately because that's coming out here in about 17 days. So, anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, those are just a couple that I think have a lot of him in it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, especially Lenora, because I I think it was on Threads. I said that Lenora, it had a lot of Stephen King's voice in it, but you managed to keep your own voice completely intact. I think I used the word brutality somewhere, but I was curious. How are you able to summon that feeling, that Stephen King feeling, while keeping it your own?
Yeah, well, I think that my son and I talked about this recently, but there's a difference. The reason why we call it OI, organic intelligence, why it will always be better than AI in the
Mm-hmm.
arts, is that AI just scrapes all these works and then recapitulates it into some Frankenstein's monster. OI is what we do when we read other people. We absorb that, and at first we imitate it, and then eventually we're able to, eventually we have our own voice. We develop our own voice, but those influences kind of remain. And I think that that's kind of the situation with me and Stephen King. It's like reading so much of him so early, so frequently, so exclusively was
Mm-hmm.
going to have, I think, an indelible impact on my instrument as a writer. And I still revisit him. I'm a constant reader, so I go back and, I will reread a lot of Stephen King. The Dark Tower series, I'll go back to. I'll go back to it. I'll go back to The Shining, Salem's Lot, The Stand, and then I'll read his new ones too. And so I think that his influence is constantly kind of filtered through my organic intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and will always be part of my voice. It's definitely my voice, as you said, but
Yeah.
there'll always be some Stephen King flavor. And I would say too, like if when I read King, I still see or feel like Richard Matheson in him. I still feel some of his influences in him. Sometimes I feel some Ray Bradbury in Stephen King. Sometimes I feel, some of the crime, right, like John D. MacDonald. I'll feel that a little bit in Mr. Mercedes. So it's like I can sense that in him as well. So I don't think it's at all unique to me. I think you'd probably agree that most of us have those writers that will always they've imprinted themselves on us and they'll always in some way echo in our work.
Absolutely. I can, you saying that kind of makes me think that, yeah, that's, I got that going too. I think almost every writer probably does. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. But like while I was reading it, I was like, especially the first, I don't know how many pages, but the very beginning, I was like, wow, this is just like going back into the stand. Like I'm here, dude. Right.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear because I did make a conscious effort to listen to. I reread The Stand, then I listened to it, quite a bit before I wrote that story. Just because, not because I wanted to sound like King, but because I wanted to live in that world, and I wanted my story to be of that world, of the Stand world. So
Sure. Can you tell us what Lenora is about for people who should be reading it?
yeah, there's a man who's lost everything and lost everything before Captain Trips, before the plague. And he has been through just about everything a person can go through and just wants to be left alone. And he is asked in the opening scene to take care of this little animal. It's a baby antelope called a dick, and
Yeah.
sweet little animal, but he's asked to take care of it and he doesn't want to. And
Hmm.
that's kind of where the story begins.
I like that idea because he's not denying this little animal because he's cold-hearted. He's denying the animal because he's lost so much and he doesn't want to lose again, and he knows he's going to. And so it takes some. We're not going to get into it, but it takes some circumstances for him to fall in love with this little creature and then become its protector. And man, this story is so heartbreaking. I mean, it's not just involving there's other things that happen that not just the dick, but yeah, we're not going to get into it. But like this story had me not sobbing, but my eyes were wet, man. Like, especially about, I guess, the halfway point to the end. I was just like, Jesus, Janz.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I was very emotional writing it and editing it, and yeah, I just think the stand is about everything. Like, that's I think what resonates so much about it is that it's life. Like, it is all of life captured in a book. And that means the good, the horrific, the hopeful, the desolate, like everything. And so I think that Baker Ludlow, the protagonist of it, I think that he's been through so much, and we see other people go through things. For me, sometimes I kind of wonder how people go on. Like, I have so much admiration for people who are like Baker, who have lost so much and then find a way to just keep it even existing, much less like live with hope and love and all those things. But yeah, I just think that in Baker's situation, I think it's very, I don't know, I think it connects to what the characters go through. The canonical characters like Stu Redman, and Larry Underwood and Franny, and they lose everything, and they have to rebuild their lives from the ashes of the world. And Baker is in that situation, and if anything, he's lost more. So yeah, I think I think that's always kind of fascinated me. I always kind of like wonder how people can do that, and I think it edifies me and gives me hope that people somehow can.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was just talking about loss and writing about loss on this podcast with Chris Panettiere. We were talking about how I forget how it came up, but I was like, if I ever lost my son, I don't know what would keep me from drinking myself to death, right? And then we talked about that for a while, and it was really kind of personal and dark conversation. But it's an interesting topic, because I think that's the power of fiction, isn't it? Like, it can teach you to not be okay with it, but to be okay not being okay.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that, and to show that not being okay is that's kind of like, that's part of being a human, is and I think permission, like fiction gives us permission to embrace that and understand that and have empathy for others who are going through things, and then also maybe give grace to ourselves when we're going through things. So fiction makes the world better. Like, it really does. And that's one of the things that I will always be thankful for the fiction writers I've read, and always thankful for the opportunity to write it, because I think that, it's one of the most powerful of all art forms.
Absolutely. I know it's done a lot for me. That's the reason why I still read today. Kind of saved me out of some rough periods when I was younger. And I know it did you too.
Sure.
As we kind of brushed upon in the beginning there.
Yeah.
But going back to Lenora, I know that wasn't your original idea for this, for your contribution to the End of the World anthology. And I want to be nosy here. I know that you had to scrap it because it had certain characters or whatnot that you couldn't use. That was like the one stipulation Stephen King put down on the table, is you can't use any of the main characters. So being nosy, I want to know what was the story that you end up scrapping?
So one thing that I don't know, I think I misunderstood this originally, because I heard Brian because when Brian told me, Brian Keene, that we weren't supposed to use the main characters of The Stand, I think I assumed that it was Stephen King who said that, but it turns out it was Brian and Chris
Oh,
who
okay.
made that decision, which I think is that was a wonderful decision.
Yeah, it was probably for the better anyway, right?
It was. I mean, and you know, a big debate I've seen pop up online about this whole project is the phrase fan fiction, and then whether or not this is fan fiction or not. And I think that I'm to the point now where I'm like, it doesn't really matter like what you call it. I mean, we are fans, and it is fiction, and it's set in his. So I guess by definition, it is. I don't think it's kind of like the traditional fan fiction, because traditional fan fiction would be like, you know, a prequel for Stu Redman, or you know, the side story with Larry Underwood or something. That's not what this is. And I think that separation from the main characters, I think, really empowered the writers in this project. At least speaking for myself, it empowered us to go in different directions and find things that maybe would have been more interesting. Because, like, Stu isn't mine, you know.
Yeah.
Randall Flagg isn't mine. Trash Can Man isn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know the whole world isn't mine either, but still. I think that, you know, the world is vast enough that I was able to find this little out of the way area that I could kind of make partially mine.
Yeah.
But no, to answer your question, the idea that I originally had, so I went into it when Brian asked me. So there are two phone calls from Brian. The first, I was at my house and Brian called and invited me into this, and I was just like, I was so excited and so grateful, but I also felt immediate pressure.
Yeah.
Just because I knew this had to be like the best short story I'd ever written. I mean, it just did. It needed to be really special. And so I immediately started thinking about Stephen King's importance in my life and how much he's done for me. And I got this notion in my head that, okay, I've got to somehow pay homage to him. I've got to somehow like thank him through these, you know, through these words. And what that ended up doing was it guided my thinking in a very kind of unhelpful way. So the basic story was going to be, there were going to be two characters, and they were trying to get to, they're trying to get somewhere. We don't know where yet. And I don't want to, if you've not read The Stand, maybe kind of tune out for just a second.
Yeah.
You find out, and they go through all this peril. It was kind of inspired a little bit by The Road, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I just love. But they go through some terrible things on the road, and then eventually they end up at this house in the country. And I think by this time it's in the East, because it's where Stu, Redman, and Franny are living.
Yeah.
And they have a daughter, I think, at this point. And when we find out that their daughter is depressed, she's like, because she doesn't have any playmates, they're all out there all alone, and she feels that lack. And Stu and Franny know she's down, but they don't know why. But she's further down than they think she is. So she's really like in a bad place emotionally. Yeah. And the main characters are trying to bring something to her and to cheer her up. And what they present her with at the end is a puppy, because they know that she needs a companion. They like have had dreams that she needs a companion. And so like in my mind, and then that cheers her up. And in my mind, that was like the puppy sounds kind of silly and simplistic, but the idea was, you know, because that kid in the story, Stu and Franny's child, was my 14-year-old self, who was just completely without confidence, without happiness, without self-esteem. And this like jolt of love and joy was Stephen King's work. And so I think metaphorically, I wasn't thinking of it in those terms. I couldn't identify all that stuff yet, but thinking back on it, I think that's kind of what that symbolized. And honestly, it would have been fine. It would have been fine. It would have been okay, and blah blah. There was like a little Easter egg at the end for fans of The Stand with Stu and Franny, but it wasn't nearly what Lenora became, I think. And Brian, with his second phone call, I was at the school when he called, and that's when he said, because there was about a 2-week interim between that, I was thinking about that story, and he says, yeah, Jonathan, I'm glad you're going to do this, and just a couple of ground rules. that was the main ground rule. And so my first response in my head was like, oh dang, the only idea I had was on.
Yeah.
But literally within 15 minutes, I was like, I felt this lightening, because I felt this like unburdening, because I didn't like the idea that much anyway. I kind of
Mhm.
I kind of recognized it for what it was, which was just my own very pure desire to thank him. But that wasn't really the place where I needed to come from to write the best story I could write. So that let me shed all of that, and then I was able to start from scratch. And then within a day, Lenora started to come to me, and then it was just fun, like my writing always is, and it was liberating and exciting and awesome.
Awesome. I really love that story.
Well, thank you. It's the first time I've told it. I don't think I've ever. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. It's an interest. Like I would have been interested in that first version, honestly. But Lenora is like incredible.
Thank you.
I also noticed on social media, I think it was Threads again. You recommended reading Elma Katsu's story on, and so of course I just went right to it because like, okay,
Good.
Jonathan Janz says, and my God, that is really good as well.
Such
It kind of had like a Steinbeck feel to it, in my opinion.
I like that.
Oh, I absolutely. So thank you for recommending. I'm kind of skipping around the book. I'm not reading it in order, which I probably should, but it's like, you get excited, right? I went to yours first, and then I went to a bunch of others, and then I read Alma Katsu, and I should really just settle down and read it in order.
her story was just so like, it felt to me just like, I don't know, it's like I felt like it was like in the mountains, like Man from Snowy River and all this stuff. It just felt so rustic and real. Like the setting was so evocative and vivid. And then you have, I mean, we're not going to spoil the story, but like it really was a good plot. And I just love the main character. And I
Yeah,
loved her
me too.
determination. And I just felt like Alma like told it's a short story, but it has the weight, I think, of a novel in that short story. So it
Yeah,
felt kind of epic, but I loved it. I thought it was so good.
and she uses an animal as well.
Oh, she does. That's right. I did.
Yeah, which although
That.
you don't get attached to the horse
Not as
as
much.
much as
Right.
the Dick, but it's still there, and you kind of care for it because the main character cares for it so much.
Agreed. Yeah.
What is it about animals and people writing animals into fiction? Every time I see a dog in a story, I'm afraid it's going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I think that we talk about the human experience. I think animals are such an important part of it. And like for me, there were two influences on Lenora. I don't know if I've ever said this to you, or one influence was my dog. I've got this dog, and she is so just amazing. The moment I come home, she's like on me and like running between my legs, and she goes upstairs with me when I change my clothes. She goes down and sits by my chair as I eat, as I sleep. She sleeps between my knees, and she's just like my constant companion. She's just the sweetest dog in the world. Elle is her name, and
Oh,
so
nice.
and so I really wanted to capture some of her spirit in Lenora, and some of my love for Elle in Lenora, and I think I did that. And then the other thing, kind of a weird connection, but Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Oh God,
I think it came
that
out.
movie.
Yeah, I think it came out around that time that I was writing Lenora, or I saw it around that time, and I mean, it's just the idea that we as humans can do whatever we want to animals, without repercussions, without feeling, without caring. I mean, I think all of us are to a degree guilty of that at some point or another, but I think we need to be more sensitive to that and introspective about that and more aware of it. And because that movie really hit me. I just thought it was I thought it had a good heart, and I thought it was a very painful movie to watch.
Yeah, especially that prison scene.
Yeah.
That's like the hardest thing. I remember because we took our son to watch that, and we
Yeah.
weren't expecting it at all, and he started crying. Right?
Yeah.
we were like, oh, I wish there was a warning or something because he's so upset now. But uh, at the same time, though, it's a good lesson, like of human cruelty. And
That's right.
yeah,
That's right. And it really, I tell you what, giving you a better understanding of Rocket too. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't see that coming. I just
yeah,
thought the whole thing was a surprise and a very special direction to go. And I admired it for that.
yeah, me too. I haven't watched it again since because of that scene,
Yeah,
but
no, it's tough. It's tough.
yeah.
Hmm.
All right, before we move on to Vale, I was just curious. What other Stephen King books would you think would be fun to write a story for in like a dedicated anthology like The End of the World?
Yeah.
Uh, I was thinking like It, Under the Dome. I
Mm.
think he could do something with Tommy Knockers too,
Mm.
and maybe Needful Things.
Mm.
What do you have on the table?
I hadn't thought of Tommy Knockers and Needful Things, but now that you say that,
You
absolutely.
totally could because it's a whole town, right?
Right, Leland Gaunt and all that. Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
phenomenal. Yeah, for me, the ones I think that recur when I think about like a universe kind of like the end of the world as we know it. I think of It, of course, like that's like because you've got the whole history there,
yeah,
and that's fascinating in the future too,
yeah.
probably. So It, I think that the Dark Tower. uh,
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. Jeez.
so, so vast, and it's such a vivid, fascinating world. It contains all worlds. So
Yeah,
the Dark Tower, I think Salem's Lot and The Shining are two others that I think would be really fascinating.
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, the Overlook is so iconic, and then Doctor Sleep is part of that universe, and I love Doctor Sleep.
Hmm.
And like Salem's Lot, I mean, that's just that book is another one that imprinted itself. All four of those things did that I just mentioned. So I think those are the four that pop out the most.
I think I would add the one. I think the only one that I didn't put on there, or that I did put on there, was It. So I'm gonna have to add those other ones because
Yeah.
I didn't, especially the Dark Tower. How did I not think of the Dark Tower? That
Well,
would
it's
be a
kind of separate, it's kind of apart, and so I
yeah,
know it's interwoven with a lot of his stuff, but it does seem, kind of like its own beast.
yeah, absolutely. That ending of Dark Tower, man, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I do too. I took me a while to kind of come to terms with it,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, not in a bad way, but it just like kind of took me aback. I was shocked, and now I kind of feel like it's the only way that could have ended.
yeah. I just love that ending.
Yeah,
That end, like I loved the whole series, but the
yeah,
ending was just like what made it for me. I love that kind of weird stuff.
yeah.
Like how it ends. It ends on a weird note, right?
It does. It does.
And
Unexpected, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and so I got my juices flowing, and I was like, oh yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
All right. So you mentioned when is the release date for Vale? Sorry.
Yeah, September 16th. We're
Nice.
creeping up on it. Yeah.
I have pre-ordered it, the physical copy.
Awesome.
Uh, I noticed that some people seem to be getting it early, so I was kind of hoping, crossing my fingers, that I would get it so I could show it on the screen. But of course,
Yeah.
it's not here. I live in Canada, so it's probably going to take forever to get here in the first place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Probably, yeah.
So, can you tell us what Vale is about for people who are going to want to read it?
Yeah. Basically, people start disappearing. They are taken by invisible creatures of some sort. And our main character loses, and I'm not going to spoil the book, but he loses more than one family member.
Mhm.
And Earth is under siege, and they can't stop these creatures because they can't see them. They can't predict when they'll strike, when they'll abduct. And the first glimmer of hope happens when one person, it turns out, can see them because this person's had a car accident and had this terrible brain injury, but the brain injury allows this person to see the creatures. And so there's this radical plan by this group of survivors to have that brain surgery to replicate that injury so they can see the creatures, do battle with them, and get their loved ones back. So
Yeah,
that's what Vale's about. Yeah.
and I really like this book.
Thank you.
It's going to make my personal top 10 at the end of the year.
Awesome.
We'll see where exactly, but it's definitely going to be up there.
Awesome.
So, how is Vale different from your back catalog?
Yeah, I think that it is. Well, I've written in first person before. But most of my work is like third person, so there it's slightly different. Probably, it's probably only in about 20% of my work have I gone first person, so it's first person narrative, a single narrator, and I think it's just got this intensity and kind of momentum that just kind of builds and builds throughout the book. I think it's really tight, and it's not like I don't think my others are, but like this one, I was just ruthless with, and just cutting and cutting and cutting and getting it down to its bare bones, and I just think it's all meat and no gristle or fat.
Mhm.
So I think it's just, and I also what I like about it is I think that it's both like a very intimate story about one man and his family, and then these survivors with whom he becomes friends. But at the same time, it's got this global facet to it that I think is
Yeah.
really fun because I've always loved, like, I love sci-fi horror. I love alien invasion stories,
Yeah.
and there are some good ones. There's some good sci-fi horror and good alien invasion stories, but just in my opinion, I don't think there are that many. Like, I feel like it's kind of an underexplored, undermined area, and that's why I feel like I feel like it's a nice addition to those areas.
It absolutely is. One of my favorite things was the progress. It's like this book is like a prog song, like a progressive metal song. Is it starts one way and it
Yes,
ends in a completely different. Like you don't know what to expect as you go.
yeah,
Uh, but there's also this part that I really wanted to. I addressed it in my review. And I want to address it here because it doesn't feel like the book is meant to be about this, but you put it in there anyway because it's very realistic,
mm,
and that's how some people react to the alien invasion. And I'm
yeah,
thinking about like the grocery store scene.
yeah,
That scene's awesome because it's like seeing people who would deny such a thing that's happening. Uh, I don't know. It's kind of unfair to say getting their just desserts, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's happening, people, right?
right.
So what was the decision? Did you struggle with putting that in there, or did it just kind of come naturally?
It came very naturally, and I think it's kind of unfortunate that it came naturally.
Yeah,
They, they say that fiction is the truth inside the lie. It's telling lies about people who never exist to tell us the truth about ourselves. And I think it rings true.
it
And
does. Yeah,
that's just it. It's like, that's what we're seeing in our world. Like increasingly over the past decade, we're seeing people deny reality, deny science.
hmm
We just had in the US, we just had the head of supposedly the head of health announce that we need to not listen to the experts.
yeah,
Apparently, we should listen to him, a person who eats roadkill and is a 14-year heroin addict. I mean, it's like, you're supposed to be the expert. You're the head of health.
yeah,
And so we're supposed to listen to you, but we're not supposed to listen to somebody who spent his entire life studying, vaccines and studying. So it's like, I hate to say it, but like this anti-science, anti-learning, anti-thinking, where science is the enemy, where universities are the enemy, where we're painting all colleges and universities as liberal brainwashing factories. I mean, it's just like, it's so insane, but that's where we're living right now. That's what's happening in our world right now. And I
yeah,
think that, as you alluded to, this grocery store scene, you have people denying that this is happening. You have people who are mocking those who are trying to look out for each other, trying to look out
yeah,
for their families, trying to observe protocols so the world doesn't descend into complete barbarism and chaos. And for that, they're being made fun of. They're being called sheep because they're, trying to do logical things to stay safe. Like I have COVID. I just went downstairs and I wore a mask because I don't want to give my daughters COVID.
yeah.
Um, and you would have many who would say that that's being a sheep, that's being foolish and all this stuff. And it's like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
geez, really? So in trying to prevent my daughters with this sickness, a sheep. I'm being a sheep. I'm being so. Anyway, I just sorry to rant, but
No,
I
that's
mean
good.
that's it's. I think it came very organically to the story, and I wish it didn't, but it did.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up, because I appreciated that it was in there. I wasn't expecting it, but when it came, I was just like, oh, thank God, because if this book came out in 2015, I don't know if I would have bought that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But
yeah,
now we've seen the evidence, and it's just like almost like everyday thing now. Like you mentioned, what's his face there, who's saying not to listen to the leaders of science and medical fact, right?
right.
And it's head scratching every day.
It really is. It really is, and it's like I think that's kind of the. I mean, not to again proselytize or go off on too much of a tangent, but I think that's one of the most devastating things of the past 10 years, and one of the most devastating things about like the accessibility of information. I
Mm-hmm.
think that anybody can feel through Google like an expert now. And it's like, and you just want to say to them, just because you saw Aunt Jenny post something on Facebook from this random YouTube account, that doesn't make it fact.
Yeah.
That doesn't overrule science. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't just because you want it to be true doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that we should replace science and learning and medicine with these beyond fringe conspiracies.
No.
But that's like, and that's like this whole people telling you to do your own research. I mean, yeah, like real research involves actual sources. It involves oversight. It involves a painstaking, laborious process of proving something. That's
Yeah.
real research. Googling, watching some video, that's not research.
No.
That's filling your head with your little reality that you want to believe and ignoring all evidence to the contrary that actually has been vetted and
Yeah.
researched because you don't like the conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Things need to change. I think maybe regulations have to be set in place, especially for like the media, because places like the New York Post or whatever, they'll spout this stuff, and people buy that is because it's in print and you can buy it at the grocery store. People buy it up and they believe it without without sources, without any receipts to prove what they're saying, and
Right.
yeah. And that's a whole other can of worms that makes my blood boil, honestly.
Same.
uh, but yeah, getting back to Vale here, uh, and this is proving this question, but I think that Vale, it read very personal to you, and I think the whole thing is very personal.
It
Is that
is.
correct in assuming so?
Very, very correct. Yeah. It's funny. I think they're kind of two prongs that I was thinking of last night as I was getting ready for bed. One prong is speculative. The other prong is very raw and vulnerable and real. The
Mm-hmm.
speculative prong for me is what's going on in the marriage between John and Iris. And the one thing honestly I worried about when I wrote it, because so much of Vale is like personal, I worried people would think that about my marriage, that my
Yeah.
separation. And again, I'm not throwing shade at people who are separated, divorced, or whatever. But my wife and I have a really like positive, solid relationship. And so the marriage in Vale is not solid. It's it's
Yeah.
separated. It's kind of like in its death throes. But for that one, what I kind of did was I just imagined like if anything ever were to break us apart, what would it be?
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of went in that direction. So
Yeah.
that was, I mean, I guess that was still vulnerable, but it was vulnerable just in like a darkly imaginative way.
Yeah.
The parts with the kids, like losing your kids and all that stuff, that was very raw and very much from just a really quick summary here. From the moment my first child was born, I began worrying about when they would leave the house. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds selfish, but I just worried about it because I love
No,
them so much.
I get it.
I love having them with me, and it was so bad, and this anxiety was so bad that I'd always had insomnia, but I would wake up at like 2 or 3 in the morning sobbing, like 3 or 4 times a week, just because I'm like, I can't, they're going to leave me someday. This is back when my son was like in 3rd or 4th grade. And I'd always looked at medicine as like it was fine for other people, but for me, I thought I'd be weak if I, took something for that anxiety. But thankfully, I got over myself and I've told my doctor about it, and she was like, yeah, you need to take something for this. This isn't healthy. And that really has helped. That helps so much. And that kind of changed my life, because I was really struggling. But yeah, like when I was writing Veil, that was in the years leading up to my son going off to college. And so and that was something I'd struggled with since the day he was born. And I struggle with my daughter, who's a senior now, and my other daughter, who's a freshman. It's not that I know I want them to be successful. I want them to have their own lives. I want them to do all those things, but I love them so much, and I just want them with me. In Toy Story 3, which I'll never watch again, Andy's mom says this line, and I always want you to be with me. It's that simple. And that's, I thought, a beautiful line. And so I feel like all of that emotion, all of that pain, all of that anxiety, I think, comes out in Veil. And that wasn't, I mean, it was hard to be that emotional, but then at the same time, once I kind of opened those floodgates, it came out very naturally, because it obviously is a part of me.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I have friends who talk about their kids as though they can't wait for them to leave the house. They're like,
get that.
they're like, yeah, I don't get it either. They're like, at 18, you're out the door and all this stuff. And I'm like, why? Like,
yeah,
I like being at home with my family. I like hanging out and playing video games with my son. I like watching movies with my wife. This past, 11 years that he's been in our life has been very enriching and growing. And I wouldn't change it for the world, but truth is, he's got to grow up and he's got to leave, right, at some point, probably, right? And I get that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I hear that, and I just, I don't say much, but I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I just kind of laugh at their jokes, but I don't ever like say yeah and agree with them.
Yeah, I mean, they're just so special. They're a part of us. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
they're our hearts. So I just, but I totally feel you, my friend. Totally feel.
And there's also some very real reactions that John experiences to particularly tragic turns that happen within the story. I mean, very dark things that I could relate to, because I was thinking the exact same thing when John had a particularly rough thought. I'm not going to say what it is, because I don't want to spoil anything. But if he had the availability, he would have jumped ship. Let's just say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had that exact same thought. Like, if this was going on with me, I would have jumped ship too. But of course, he didn't have the means to do that.
Right.
And this is where I was getting into the fiction versus reality.
Yeah.
When you're reading a book like this, it's unfair to the author, I think, to say that this is what the author's like, because I feel it too, right? But you see that in just talking here, that you do kind of have those thoughts and feelings too, if something bad were to happen like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess, yeah, that's the question. It's like, as long as you have one loved one, it seems like that would give you, and I'm not saying that other people should be your purpose in life. I think that there are other things that can give us purpose, but I think for most people, the people in their lives are a big part of their purpose and their calling, or what they perceive as their calling. And if, as long as you had one loved one, you could, like, at least pour yourself into that. But what happens if they're all gone? And to be honest, that's kind of where Lenora and Veil kind of intersect, in the way that, what does somebody do who's got nothing, seems to have nothing? What would you do? And I think that yeah, I mean, I think for most of us, some of the darkest thoughts would probably flit through our minds. I think that's kind of a human reaction. Not that it's the best or healthiest reaction, but I think that would at least occur to a lot of people who've lost everything.
That's my biggest fear, of not just losing everything over a period of time, but losing everything all at once.
Yeah.
Because that would be the most painful, emotionally torturous thing I think I could possibly go through. And I think you with both these stories, you definitely captured that, because it had me going, yeah, man, me too, throughout the whole thing, you know.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
The character interactions I really enjoyed as well, because the way they talk to each other, like it's not like the happiest family in the world, but they're not necessarily the worst family in the world either. They're not a bad family at all, but they have their, bickerings and whatnot. Like the story begins with father and son having an argument.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if, I think it was Brian Keene who said this. I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But there is an author I remember saying that they used to get in trouble for lifting real arguments or real conversations that they've had and putting them into their fiction. Are you guilty of that at all?
There are like little moments, I think, that inspire conversations in my stories, like moments, and kind of themes, like the actual wording. Like, I love to write dialogue, dude. Like, I just love it so much. It's so fun, and I think it's such an opportunity. And I really, I'm whatever. I guess we're writers, so we're proud of our work, but I'm proud of the dialogue.
I think you should be.
Well, I appreciate that. I do think some of the things that have happened, like my son and I, like, we've got a great relationship, but like in that opening scene, the son is bristling at what he thinks is his dad's inability to relax and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tough position to be the heavy. It's a tough position to say no. It's a tough position because sometimes you have to say no, and then to the kid doesn't make any sense, but to the parent it's like there's a rational reason. But neither side, and I think that's what I read this a long time ago. Saul Stein is this famous editor, and he has a couple books on writing, but one article he wrote was like, give your characters different scripts. And I think that just always resonated with me. It's like, we do, like you and I in this conversation, we enter into it with a different script. Yeah. Like, you've had your day, you have your reality, and I have mine. And that's invariably, if you're with somebody long enough, that's going to cause some static here or there. And the John's son, Sam, the boy who's 15, he's not evil, he's a good kid. And John's not evil, but he's flawed too. And so when both of their flaws, when both of their stubbornness, when those things come into conflict, it's going to be a problem. And so we never had that exact conversation, but boy, we had several like it, several that were adjacent to that conversation over the years.
Yeah. But even like the calmer conversations, like when John and his daughter are sitting around trying to figure out what to do next, and they're watching horror movies. I could picture, because you talk about it so much online. Your daughter, you watch a lot of horror movies with her, and so I could just picture that,
Yeah. I think so. She they're yelling at each other right now. This is amazing.
It's great timing, right?
A little taste of life right there. Anyway, hey, we're on a podcast, by the way, kiddo. Just want you to know that we love you, but we can hear you. All right, I just don't want to be embarrassed later. Anyway, so that's amazing. No, it's like I totally forgot what we were talking about. My daughter's yelling at each other.
Oh, just you and your, actually, we were talking about your daughter. You watching movies with her?
Okay, so in Vale, Juliet is the daughter that, Peach, my youngest, she shows up a lot in some of my books, and but this one I think had a lot of Juliet in it in Vale,
Mhm.
the character of Emma, the daughter of John,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like the dynamic between those two was a lot like the dynamic between me and Juliet. And it's not like, no dynamic is perfect, but it has its own like the relationship has its own personality and its own rhythms and its own like reaction, the way you react to each other, the
Yeah.
way you riff off of each other, the way you occasionally disagree with each other. It felt very like true to what I have lived with her,
Yeah.
mostly in good ways, occasionally in bad, but mostly in good.
Nice. How are you able to do that? Because every time I try to write about my real life,
Yeah.
or at least add elements into it, the
Yeah.
story ultimately changes into something completely different. And it's almost like I don't want to deal with it, or I
Yeah.
don't want to do that in my mind. How do you do that?
It works because I'm not trying to do it. It works
Okay.
because I'm like, at the time I'm not conscious of doing it. At the time I'm not aware that I am channeling my experience. At the time, Bradbury always said this. He said that don't think, just feel. Just feel. And that's what I do. Like, I'm not thinking at all. I'm not thinking about my life. I'm not thinking about my day. I'm not thinking about my past or future. I'm just feeling.
In the story.
In this story, I'm feeling what the characters are feeling. And then invariably, those parts of me are going to like filter through onto the page. So I think that if I did think about Juliet as I wrote Emma, it would be disastrous and
Yeah.
clunky and would draw attention to itself. But I think because I wasn't thinking, it just goes.
I think that's the problem, is that sometimes I want to write about, like, I want to add elements of my family life in there, or something else, right? And it's because I'm thinking of that. And I end up stopping and writing
Sure.
something else, or I start over again and it's completely different from where I started. So yeah,
I get
awesome.
that. Totally.
I do want to talk about the end of Vale without spoiling it. So this is going to be hard to ask, because when we get to the end of Vale, it's that prog rock song that I was talking about. We end completely different from where we started. So when we go to the ending, it's very different. And I wanted to talk about your imagination on this, because it's very detailed. Like, I could picture this place so vividly.
Oh, that. Yeah.
So what did you have to sit down and think, okay, what's this going to be like? Or did it just come naturally? Because I know you write by the seat of your pants. So did that just come to you as you wrote, or did you have to sit down and say, okay, there's going to be this and there's going to be that, and these pod things and all these other things?
Yeah, so this book, Vale, and then this other book I'm editing, it's done, but I'm editing it, called The Stars Have Left the Skies.
Mm-hmm.
They are more research intensive than anything I've done before,
Mm-hmm.
because they're both kind of like, especially Vale it's definitely sci-fi horror, at least to me. And then with The Stars Have Left the Skies, it's got science in it, but it's a little more toward horror. I'd say Vale is closer to the center between those two. But yeah, so in both cases, what I did was I did a lot of research before and as I wrote them. And I find, for me, one of the best ways to research something is to talk to really smart people who know more than I do about it. And so for Vale, for that part of Vale that you're alluding to, the last act of Vale, I talked to this science teacher, and she actually has been my expert for both of those books, at least one of my experts for both of those books. Her name is Andy, and she teaches with me. Really, really intelligent woman. And so we speculated on like what that would look like, what that would, what I would have to, what I would need to include, what we should think about, the laws of physics and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of that sprang naturally from the creatures themselves, because they so we knew that they were from this place that I would be describing. So that was kind of like our way in.
Mhm.
So we would imagine, okay, so what would this place have to be like for them to inhabit it? And then we kind of grew it from there. And parts of it were just sheer imagination. Like a lot of it is like my bringing something hopefully to an expert and saying, can I do this?
Yeah.
They'll either say yes or no, or maybe if we do this, if you alter it in this way, then it can work. And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like, I was envisioning something and I would bring it to her and she'd
Mhm.
be like, well, that's not quite the way it would work. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
bang, and I'd have to scrap it. But
Yeah.
in other cases, it was like, yeah, that's actually pretty realistic, and then I was happy. And then in another case, it was something where, okay, we might be able to do this, but you've got to like, here's the problem with it. Here's what you've got to address. And
Mhm.
then we would kind of stress test it and together come up with a way to make something more plausible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll make a note here. Make friends with science teacher.
That's resources. Such good resources.
For sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I know some science teachers, so I'm in good ground here.
Good.
So, what do you hope readers will take away the most from reading Veil?
I hope I guess two things. Well, okay. So for me, a book or a movie or a show that succeeds on these three levels, if this show or book can do all three of those things, it's really succeeded. I think the gateway through which the others happen is that it's entertaining. And for me, that means cinematic. Like, I know that not every story has to be cinematic, but that's the style I like. I like it when people can imagine it as a movie or a show. I want it to be visual. I want it to be an experience where the reader can inhabit that world. So the first thing is that I want them to enjoy it in a cinematic way. So that's one. Because I feel like this is something that's kind of made for the screen.
Yeah.
Secondly, I want them to definitely feel something, because it is a very emotional story, and all readers are different. Some readers want to be thrilled, some readers want to be scared, some readers want to laugh, some readers want to be titillated, whatever. But I think people go to books without, maybe they don't realize it, but I think they want to be touched. I think they want to feel something, or at least relate to something. So I want people to feel. And then the last thing is I want them to, and this is the third most important, but if this box can be checked, that's just a little bit of icing on the cake. I want them to think a little bit, and that is about the science, partially because my wife read it. She doesn't usually read my work. She hasn't read one of my books in about a decade.
Yeah.
But she kept talking about that. She was like, "This is fascinating." She was like, "This is."
Yeah.
I find myself wondering about what these creatures would be like, what we would do. So I was really gratified at that. But then also, when you think, that also means thinking about, okay, so is this how society would react? Is this how a person would react if his loved ones were taken, right? So thinking about the scenarios in the story, I think that if you can entertain, feel, and think in a book, I think that you've really experienced something. So I hope readers do all three of those.
Well, I can tell you that it did those for me.
Well, thank you.
I mean, it was so much fun to read, but it was also heartbreaking in points, and so it touched me, and also made me think. Like, I'm kind of on board with your wife. With the whole questioning, what's going on? What would these things look like, and
That's
all
awesome.
that. It just kept me going, and it was an absolute roller coaster ride. Absolutely loved it. And it's funny that you mentioned that it would make a great movie. I think it would too. I was going to ask you a question about what book of yours do you think would make a great film? But I think Veil honestly needs to be a film, or at least a limited series.
Yeah, I agree, and I thank you for that. But I agree. I think it would be so good. I think it would be so good, and I think it would. I really think that people would. Yeah, I think people would relate. I think people would find it pulse pounding and interesting, and yeah, harrowing. So I'm really happy to hear you say that, because I do feel like this would be wonderful on screen.
Absolutely. Um, Now, before we go, I just want to talk briefly about some of your other works.
Yeah, sure.
Nothing too deep, but you've written a couple of shorter stories, like series, not
Yeah.
stories, but shorter series, like duologies,
Yeah.
like Children of the Dark and The Raven. I've read the Children of the Dark series, including Savages.
Savage Species, yeah.
Savage Species, right? Yeah, that was the last one I read, and
All right.
man, that's just so vicious.
So-
Those books are all so vicious. But I haven't read The Raven yet. But I was wondering if you go into books, do you, like, because the way they end, like Children of the Dark, the way that first one ended, it could totally went somewhere else, right? And it did. I don't know about The Raven, but do you go into writing a book thinking, I think I'm going to write a series, or is it more like there needs to be more when you're done?
Yeah, depends on the situation. I've done both. The Raven was one of the few where I actually was thinking series when I went into it, and it's one I'd like to continue. Like, I'm very fond of those two books. And then Children of the Dark, I did not think of that as a series at all when I first started. And the ending, like the denouement, the resolution scene, kind of really surprised me. I didn't think it was going to end like that, but then that naturally led readers to ask if there was going to be more. And I think the same thing goes for Veil. Veil, I didn't think of as a series at all, but I think that when it got to the end, I began, like, as I was writing the resolution scene, I'm like, oh, wow, this would be interesting to continue. So, yeah, so usually I don't set out for that, but yeah, sometimes it just happens organically.
So, are you alluding maybe to the possibility of there being another Veil book?
I would love for there to be. We will see. Let's see what people think of it, and let's see how pre-sales have been very robust. So let's hope that continues into into release day and beyond. Let's hope people snatch it up and then tell their friends about it, because
absolutely.
I would love to write more in that universe. I just think it's like, I mean, I'm not likening myself to Stephen King. I'm not likening this book to The Stand, because it's a very different book, very different story than The Stand, right? That's just like huge canvas, huge palette. But in the same way, like, it reminds me, this story, Veil, reminds me a little bit of A Quiet Place, in that it's like one family, one situation. This is their tale. That's kind of what Veil is. But then you've seen that universe expand a little bit, a lot now, with Day One, where you just go to a completely different place, completely different cast of characters. I think Veil could be the same way. Like, I would love to follow this story with whatever characters survive in Veil. I like to follow that. But then I think going elsewhere too would be pretty fascinating.
So, assuming, let's just say down the road, you have the opportunity to, it's sold well and people are like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so you're on board with writing a sequel. Do you have any ideas at the moment of where it could go? You don't have to go into it, but are they there? Yeah,
I do, absolutely. And it's weird. Like, one direction is staying with the main characters that we have that are left at the end of Veil, and the other is starting somewhere completely differently, and then maybe by the end linking. But either,
cool.
it would be. I think either way would be a really fun approach. Yeah.
Now, this gives a good example of how awful my brain can be and how awful it can work sometimes. I did an episode here on the Weird Reads podcast, and we covered Gothic fiction with one of my friends.
Yeah.
And I read The Dismembered for that episode specifically.
Nice.
But I completely forgot to mention it in the entire episode. I forgot to write it down in my notes. And it's not because it's a bad book. I absolutely loved it, but it just, I don't know what happened. I was so mad at myself. I was editing it and I'm like, where's The Dismembered? And then it was like, oh God, I didn't even mention it. Oh my God, what the hell?
And that is okay. When you've read enough books, when you know that we do forget. I was asked to write this short thing of 5 great sci-fi horror books, and I saw it in print the other day. And the moment I saw it, of course, I'm thinking, oh, why didn't you mention this one or this writer? And I was immediately frustrated with myself for not including those. So I can totally, connect.
I worry about my brain some, like, as again, I was talking to Chris Panettiere, and we were talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, and when things like that happen, you start to like, oh no, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
Let's hope it's not going in that direction.
I totally relate to that.
But I don't know what happened. But I wanted to talk about Dismembered just a little bit, because a lot of people were talking about that book when it came out. It was a favorite, and I didn't read it until this year, like I said, for that podcast episode.
Yeah.
And oh my God, like you have all the elements there of like a Gothic classic, but then you add in this savagery.
It is a savage book.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah.
I loved it. It was so much fun.
It goes up a notch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of all, I think that you're probably like this in the stuff that you write, but I think when we write something, we love it, we're fond of it, we're proud of it. But I think we have scenes within a work that we're extra proud of.
Mhm.
And there's a scene in the Dismembered, and you'll probably remember this, but it's a dinner table scene where everything changes.
Yeah,
and,
that's the scene I was thinking of.
I'm so proud of with that story. And this is very self-congratulatory or whatever, but like, it's okay to be proud of your work.
Absolutely.
In that scene, you've got so many talking parts. Like, it's like a play. You've got like 10 or 12 talking parts, and you've got all these dynamics at work, and it's like all these plates are spinning, and they're all like evolving through this dinner table scene.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these mysteries are starting to reveal themselves, and these revelations and epiphanies are happening, and all these characters have different scripts, and they're starting to realize things, and there's like the global tension of like the main thing that's about to happen, and then the other pieces kind of feed into that, and other like mysteries connect to it.
Yeah.
I'm just really proud of that scene, and it's so
Yes,
brutal.
I remember that scene vividly, man, because I was just like, I'm like, oh, this is like quite the Gothic little story, Jonathan,
Right.
going here, and then suddenly, boom, and it doesn't let up from there, right? But that initial scene was just like, it made me open up my eyes, right, like really wide, and go, oh my God.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
It's a total turn into, just like you said, into just blood, into this bloodbath, man, and it gets so dark from that point on. And it's like, because we've gotten hints of darkness, and we've had rumors and whispers, but then when we actually see what this is going to be and where it goes, it's like, oh dang, are we really going there? But yeah, that book definitely goes there.
It's insane. It's well, I haven't read a clunker from you yet, but it's one of my favorites, along with Veil. Veil knocked my socks off. I think it's my favorite of yours right now.
Oh, so good to hear. Thank you.
But we've kind of brushed upon this topic here and there, and I want to bring it up before we go, because I think it's important. You see on social media a lot of people disparaging their own work. When they write something, or go, I hate everything I write.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've come from that. I've been there. I understand what it's like. But I think I'm in a place now where I'm enjoying the things I write, because I'm having fun doing it again.
Good.
How important is it? I think, I mean, you have to have a critical eye too. You have to be able to see what's not good and take it out or change it or whatever. But how important is it to enjoy what you write?
Yeah. I used to have trouble with that. I used to not do that. I would basically not look at my stories again.
Mhm.
I wouldn't read them. Because I'd be afraid I'd find something I didn't like.
Yeah.
And so I think that self-awareness, though, to a degree, is healthy, I think, because I think the danger zone is when a writer thinks that everything that he writes is perfect.
Yeah.
I think that if we ever get to that point, that's when we probably got to check ourselves. Yeah. But I think there is a happy place in between there, where I think we can, enjoy what we've done and be proud of what we've done. I think that's a healthy place to be, as long as there's enough, like you're talking about, enough scrutiny, especially obviously in the editing process. I think that if we can be as brutal as possible, as just ruthless as possible during the editing process, then that allows us to kind of like just relax and enjoy what we've done later on. Then I think
Yeah.
that's a nice place to be. And so, yeah, I think that if you can get to the other side of that, where you can be a ruthless editor, but then also somebody who enjoys what you've done, I think that's a good place to be. I'd say that's kind of where I am. Yeah, so I can look at my work now, and I look at my early work, and there's some things I'm sure I'd change,
Mhm.
but in general now, when something gets published, I am far more happy with it than I'm not, and I think that's a good place to be.
Awesome. I agree with that. I think it's important to be self-critical, but not hate. Like hate is a strong word, and like I said, I've been there too, and it can be it can completely destroy the whole thing that you're trying to do. It doesn't make writing fun at all.
Yeah, it can. And I think we're at a cool moment. There's this quintessential moment. Peach, my youngest, came downstairs the other day, and she's reading Children of the Dark right now.
Huh?
And of course, Peach is the main character of Children of the Dark. And she's like, "Can I read part of this to you?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so she read it, and I realized it was an earlier version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it got published in 2016, and then it was reissued in 2023.
Yeah.
December of 2023, not that long ago. And it was fun because as she was reading it, I was both very proud of what I had written, because I was like smiling and laughing at these lines or that lines, and she was smiling or laughing. But then there are also a couple things that I'd changed that I was proud that I'd changed. It was kind of a weird moment for me, but a good moment, because I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of what I wrote in 2016, but I've also gotten better since then. So
Awesome.
that place is a cool place to find yourself.
Is it weird for you having like when your kids are reading your books?
It was a little surreal. Yeah, it was surreal, but then it was also mostly positive, and it was so fun to see her react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for her, because if it sucks, she's not going to want to read it. And she was clearly enjoying herself, and she was sincerely laughing at certain parts, and a little embarrassed at other parts, because there were a lot of profanities in there because that's how Will and Chris and Barley talk. They've got some profanity, as 15-year-olds often have, right, when their parents aren't around. So that was it was a lot of fun. Like, I basically just sat there. It's funny, I was on the couch, she was at the couch across from me, and she was reading it, and then on my couch I was listening, and I started to lean back, and then eventually I just kind of like, I was lying all the way back and just kind of enjoying myself. And
Nice.
I kicked my feet up, and it was kind of a fun moment. It was a cool moment.
Very cool. I kind of worry about when my son is going to be curious about reading my stuff.
Yeah, there'll be a point, man. There'll be a point when that happens, and it'll be surreal, but I bet it'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Now, I know that you write the majority of your books during the summer months when you're not working at school.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, after Veil, of course, I'm always looking to the next, right? What can we expect? What comes after Veil?
Man, that is very much up in the air, which is both terrifying and exciting. Yeah, they're different iterations of different deals that we are working on right now. And it's just funny how kind of one thing informs another. So I would love, there are two books I think might come out in 2026, but I don't want to say what their titles are yet.
Okay.
There are two more for 2027, but again, I can't really, and I know you're not like pushing me on it, because you're very respectful of like all those parameters and boundaries.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, like I look for two novels to come out in 26, and at least two in 27. Maybe three. Like, I've got so much. And I've gotten to this point where, I don't know, I have certain expectations for my work and where they're published, and yeah, so we'll see. We'll see which deals come to fruition and which ones don't.
Nice.
Publishing is very unpredictable, but yeah.
But you're a bit of a writing machine.
I don't stop. Yeah,
Nice.
I don't stop. That's for sure.
All right. We made it to the final question. I ask this of all my first-time guests on the Weird Reads podcast,
Yeah.
and it's to help promote authors who I've always noticed that people they tend to talk about one typical author or group of authors, right? Well, where you're thinking, why aren't you talking about these guys who are also awesome? And so I want to know what you think. Which authors do you feel are neglected and wish more people were discussing, especially on social media?
Yeah, there's one. She doesn't have much of. I don't think she's on social media a lot, which probably means she's happier than the rest of us who are.
Yeah, probably.
But the writer, her name is Faye Snowden, Faye, and then last name is Snowden. Faye Snowden.
Nice.
She has published a couple novels called A Killing Fire and A Killing Rain. And I think, one thing that really matters, we're probably not conscious of it, but it's what I think draws us. Honestly, it's what draws us to Stephen King, draws me to Stephen King, and that's voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think voice is so difficult to nail down, so difficult to define, but you know it when you hear it.
Yeah.
And she's got a very unique voice, a very strong voice. And I would love for people to read those books, The Killing Rain and The Killing Fire. Killing Fire was the first one, Killing Rain is the second one. And they're kind of horror adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel Southern Gothic to me, and that's a genre I love.
Yeah.
But she's somebody that I would just really like people to become aware of and to really check out, because yeah, it's like, Stephen King, the reason I love him is his voice. And then like Caroline Kepnes, I love her voice in the book You and Providence.
Mm-hmm.
I just love her voice. It's just something very special that I can kind of just, tap my toes to and really feel. And then Faye is one of those writers. I just feel like she has got something there. And also, like, she has a readership. People read her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I feel like if it would grow, if more people would read her, I think more people would fall in love with her work. And she's just somebody that I'd love for her to write a lot more. I mean, I think she writes,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd love for her to write a lot more, because I think she's got a lot to say and a lot of stories to tell. So that's the one I want to talk about. Yep.
Awesome. I'll add her name and her books to the show notes so everyone can go check out.
Awesome.
I'm going to check it out. And I want to thank you, Jonathan. You're sick with a nasty virus that could be life-threatening. It's not. I mean, you're up and about, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's a nasty virus.
Yeah.
And you came on anyway, and you talked with me, but you didn't just talk with me here. You also talked with me on my other podcast, Short Bites. And I want to thank you profusely for taking time out of your life to talk to me.
You're a blast, man. You do an awesome job. I love.
Thank you so much.
You do a wonderful job, and you're just a super awesome person. So it's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Where is the best place for people to follow you online should they want to, keep tabs on you for your writing?
Yeah, like a landing place is jonathanjanz.com. But you can follow me on most of the social media platforms. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, TikTok occasionally. So yeah, follow me any of those places, friend me, and then we can interact there. And read Lenora, From the End of the World as We Know It, and then please order Veil. Please read Veil, because I think it's as good as anything I've written.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud of it. So I hope you all check it out.
It's an incredible book.
Thanks, man.
One of my favorites of the year. Awesome. And it kept me on my toes, man. So thanks for writing it. And I don't know if you had anything to do with it, but I ended up getting an early read copy in eARC from what's that, NetGalley. I was so surprised to see that come through, and I was like, awesome. So
I didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, I don't know who okays that, who curates. It's so above my pay grade. It's just kind of cool to me.
So I was lucky.
I'm always hoping that people get it. I want everybody to read it. So I was delighted to hear that you did. That's great.
I'm telling you right now, I never get approved for NetGalley stuff.
Oh,
And so that was like one of the first one in year. Like, I don't go there very often, but when I do, it's always like, nope, we're not interested. But this one went through, and I'm like, holy cow, okay.
good.
And so I
Good.
read it. Yeah,
That makes me so happy.
awesome. Well, thank you, Jonathan, and I hope you're feeling better. And we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.